Hey folks, welcome to No Excuses, How to Get Yourself on Stage. My name is Bobbie Carlton. So here's a brief agenda of what we're going to cover off today. We'll start with a brief introduction, talk about why visibility drives opportunity, or why speak. We're going to learn about the speaker's paradise, and we're going to talk about how to get started with public speaking and how to find speaking opportunities and secure those speaking engagements. Then we're going to talk about how to nail down those presentations and make them truly awesome. So my name is Bobbie Carlton, and I'm the founder of Innovation Women. We're an online speakers bureau for entrepreneurial and technical women. I've spent most of my career, more than 30 years, getting other people on stage in front of the media. I've worked as the head of global PR for 2 different publicly held enterprise software companies, and I've worked with tiny little startups. Now that I own my own businesses, yes, there's definitely more than one, I have to get myself out there. And this is something that doesn't come naturally to me. I started my first company 10 years ago. I was running a monthly event where I had to speak every single month. And those first events were so painful. If you look hard enough online, I'll bet you can find some video of them. Please don't, but you can. So today, more than 100 events later, I'm getting a little bit better at what I'm doing, and it doesn't take quite so much out of me. What I'm saying is, if I can do it, so can you. But why should you? Well, for one thing, it's really good for your career. Now, I want you all to close your eyes and imagine something for me. You are attending an industry conference. You've checked in, you've got your badge, maybe a little coffee and a muffin if it's a morning event. You settle into your seat at your first session. It's a panel. Now, open your eyes. Does it look like this? I can almost hear you guys all laughing, right? Yes, absolutely. So conferences and events have a gender problem. It's a very visible gender problem, a very, very visible gender problem. It's so bad that it's mocked on social media. For example, your all-male panel can get the big thumbs up from David Hasselhoff. Audience members can upload pictures of all-male panels to the "Congrats, you have an all-male panel" on Tumblr and stamp them with a picture of the Hoff. Or if you're like many people, you take a picture and you tweet it out or you post it on Facebook. There's even an all-male panel excuses bingo card, and I'm sure we've all heard them. No women volunteered. There aren't many women in this field. We need big-name speakers to sell tickets. We've invited 2 women and they said no. And speaking of which, we created a new bingo card all our own with all the reasons that women say no to those speaking invitations. So why do women say no to speaking invites? It might not be the reasons you think. We hear from event managers that women say no more often than men. We heard recently from one event manager that in his events, women say no 50% of the time, and men say yes 90% of the time. Women are more likely to work for a smaller company. They're more likely to work part-time. Think about it. If you work for a smaller company, it's probably harder for you to free up travel budget and harder to get away for the day if there's no one to take your place in the office. If you only work 2 or 3 days a week, it's harder to devote one of those days to an off-site speaking engagement. Women are also more likely still to be managing things on the home front, picking up and dropping off kids, elder care, etc. And then there are those women who are on the circuit. They're well known in a certain field or a location, and they often feel like they're under siege, fielding multiple offers and having to turn some of them down. If the same people keep getting asked, they will have to say no to some of the options. Women or really anyone, should say yes to speaking engagements. So here's why. Because every time you get on stage, you get a new opportunity. Speaking is a direct line to business opportunities and professional growth. So let's jump in. The events industry itself is growing. There's a rise in digital marketing, the companies that are filling the top of their sales funnel with leads. This also means there's an increase in the number of live events out there. Maybe it's just because there's a point in many sales processes where you have to get face-to-face with a customer, and a one-to-many event is just a ticket. So what does this mean for speakers? It means there's a speaker's paradise. Right now, there are a lot of opportunities out there, more than ever before, for people who are willing to speak in public. In fact, there's a huge, huge need for speakers. TEDx, Meetup, Eventbrite, hundreds of thousands of events mean there are hundreds of thousands of speaking opportunities. And many of these ongoing programs, they're looking for a new panel of speakers for every event, and sometimes that's every single month. There have been more than 50,000 individual TEDx talks given. More than 500,000 meetups happen every month, and last year more than 2 million events sold tickets on Eventbrite. And that doesn't include the 92,000 professional and business organizations in the U.S. alone. These kinds of organizations regularly host events with speakers too. So I'm going to take a break right now and let you know that at the end of the presentation, we're going to be answering some questions from the audience. So if you have questions, you can drop them into the chat, and we'll answer those questions at the end. So pressing onwards, there are also other opportunities to speak too. Service clubs, chambers of commerce, and there are different types of speaking engagements. When you start thinking about speaking opportunities, most people are just thinking about the keynote, you know, the one person on stage, that lone speaker at the podium who sets the tone for an event. The reality is there are as many different kinds of speaking opportunities as there are speakers. You don't have to get on stage by yourself, I promise. Many people end up speaking on panels or doing fireside chats or roundtables. But still, why speak? There are many benefits to public speaking. We group these benefits into 5 main categories, and we call them the 5 C's. The first C stands for customers. Every time you tell your story in front of an audience, you're speaking to potential customers, or maybe partners, or the audience is a conduit to potential customers. Let's take the Boston Big Data Meetup as an example. Last I looked at it, it had about 4,000 members. The monthly events draw anywhere from 300 to 500 people. That's 300 to 500 people who are all interested in big data. And if you're selling to a big data crowd, that sounds like a golden opportunity to me. The second C is cash. Entrepreneurs learn very quickly that visible startups and visible C-suite teams get more funding. Female entrepreneurs receive only a tiny fraction of the venture funding in this country. 85% of the venture capital goes to companies with no woman on the senior management team at all. While pitch contests and the like, Shark Tank, anyone, can lead to funding, just being a regular on the speaking circuit can play an important role in getting you in front of the right people. Those people are the ones with money, and the more they hear your story, the more likely you are to get funded. And the cash isn't just for entrepreneurs either. The more you speak, the better for your career, and the more valuable you are to an employer. Hello, Raise. The third C is community. we want you to build your community, extend your circle, or network through speaking engagements. So let's do some math. 100 people in the audience. Thousands of people received the email blast promoting the event. Thousands more may have seen an ad, a tweet, a LinkedIn or Facebook post about the event, including you and your speaking engagement. They're seeing your name, your company name, your face, your topic. You become recognizable. So what if the organization posts videos from the event or turns your presentation into a podcast? Let's add in that potential audience. When you speak, it's not uncommon to have someone in the audience share your wisdom with their network via social media, or just tell somebody about it. Either way, your reach is far beyond the people that are in that room. The fourth C is credibility. Every time you step foot on stage, you're seen as an expert. The assumption from the audience is that you were specially chosen for this particular speaking engagement. You were vetted. You were chosen from amongst the many because you have more knowledge than anyone else in this area. It certainly sounds like credibility to me. The fifth C is career. Last year I was on a panel at the conference on world affairs at Colorado University in Boulder with 3 other women. A student asked us, what's the best thing that you can do for your career? Across the board, the answer was get comfortable with public speaking. Being able to clearly present concepts and your point of view is hugely valuable. You earn visibility and credibility, but being a public speaker is something that marks you for promotion. Getting out there and speaking also gets you considered for other jobs, perhaps at other companies. Warren Buffett was famously afraid of public speaking. It is amongst the top fears we all have, even worse than death, I've heard. And he was afraid to the point of getting physically ill as a young man when he was called upon to speak in public until he took a class in public speaking. And he was very vocal about his admiration for people who were very good speakers. If you work for someone else, you need to find out about your employer's spokesperson policy. Different companies have different policies when it comes to employees and public speaking. Many organizations will manage public speaking engagements through the PR, marketing, or corporate communications departments. But you'll also find speaking opportunities through sales and human resources. It may end up becoming part of your job if you're really good at it, and it's part of your role. Many companies want their employees out speaking. Others are more cautious, and they may require training before you're allowed to speak on the company's behalf. Start off your adventure into public speaking by looking into your company's policies. What are they like? Does your company offer or require speaker or spokesperson training before you can get out there on their behalf? Are you allowed to speak publicly if you don't use the company's name and brand? Know what you can and cannot say publicly, and be very aware of sharing any corporate secrets. So now that you know why you need to be out public speaking, here's how. We have a system that we call GASP. It's a 4-step process, and it starts off with getting the gig. So you need to find out about opportunities first. So you can do that by using tools like TalkWalker or Google Alerts to get informed about speaking engagements. These are free online tools that allow you to set up email alerts, and they're keyed to your topics and your areas of expertise. When we set them up, we'll often use words like calls for speakers, and we'll key them into the areas of expertise for our speakers. So for me, I will look for calls for speakers regarding speaking opportunities, women and gender issues, or public relations and marketing. You'll want to add in your own topics there when you set up these alerts. Now, once you find an appropriate event, you need to figure out who books the speakers. Is there a committee? Is there a single person? Do you need to get recommended or referred? Do you need to submit a paper or an abstract? Is there an official call for speakers on the website? If I'm targeting a specific show or an event, I make sure that I'm on the mailing list. That's one of the keys that you can take away from this right away. One important thing to understand is the timing, or what we call the decision cycle. A speaking placement can happen months in advance of a conference or an event. How far in advance is the initial call for speakers? Look at last year's event if it's an annual event. And if you're looking at next year's event, ask a current speaker how they got the gig. If they've started promoting the event already, you often can't do more than offer to be a last-minute replacement. I will also tell you, speaking begets speaking. The people who speak get more opportunities to speak. We call it being on the circuit. A great many event managers look at other events when they're looking for speakers. And once you've done a few, you're going to get others offered to you. Every week, the Innovation Women team collects calls for speakers and sends them to our speakers in a single email. They're all carefully organized, and we watch the deadlines closely. Just to give you a sense of the scale, our weekly email can have more than 100 opportunities. That's more than 100 opportunities in a single week. So as a rule of thumb, also when you're applying to speaking engagements, some of the folks that we work with expect one opportunity for every 10 appropriate opportunities that they apply for. And that kind of ratio isn't indicating that you're good or bad at applying for them. It just indicates where you're appropriate. And there's 100 different reasons why you might not be appropriate. So moving on to A in the GASP method, once you have the gig, you need to do a good job with your presentation. This helps ensure you get other invitations and referrals from event managers. Event managers talk. The first step there is know your audience. The fastest way to a poor rating is to deliver expert content to beginners or vice versa, or have an intimate talk prepared when you're scheduled for something in a massive theater. Make sure the conference organizer and the audience have appropriate expectations of your level of expertise. So there are actually two S's here and two aspects to selling your story. The first is when you're applying to speak. The second is during the presentation itself. In order to apply for a speaking engagement, you're going to need a biography, a professional headshot, and an abstract. You may also need a video of yourself speaking. We know through the Innovation Women platform that speakers with videos get 4 times as many invitations on average as a speaker without a video. And the videos don't need to be fancy either. No one really needs the fancy sizzle reel with the audience quotes and the music. The video just needs to be of you speaking. As you climb the ladder of speaking success, you may want to create a website dedicated to your growing speaking practice. We also recommend keeping a list of your speaking engagements and topics handy. You probably have specific goals for your speaking engagements, but we strongly advocate for a presentation that delivers value for your audience. I could come in here and deliver an hour-long presentation about how Innovation Women works, but I'm guessing the webinar would probably empty out pretty quickly. No one really wants to be sold to. They want to learn something. So, pro tip, delivering a sales pitch is a no-no. That usually ensures that there won't be a return engagement. Even if you use your product as an example during your presentation, make sure that people get other tips they can use without buying your product. Oh yeah, and be fun. Don't be boring. So, while many people think about speaking as a solo activity, there are far more opportunities to speak as a panelist. It's a good way to get started creating a public persona for yourself. And when you're pitching for a speaking opportunity, you may find that pitching a panel is a good shortcut to success. You can help event managers by finding other panelists for them. And maybe the event manager is looking to round out a panel and you know other speakers you'd like to appear with. Or maybe you can't help them yourself, you're booked already, it's too far away, or it's not a perfect fit for you topic-wise. You can always come to me. Come to the Innovation Women website, sign up as an event manager, and you can search our database for free. There's my commercial. On to the next slide. So, follow-up. It's incredibly important to your overall success as a speaker. Make sure your speaking pitches have been received. Sometimes websites and submission forms will give you a confirmation. And if you don't make it into one event, you can ask if there are others coming up. Many event organizers manage multiple events. And as you seek to leverage your speaking engagements for other speaking engagements, if you collect cards or emails at your speaking engagement, make sure you follow up with a potential lead before they've forgotten all about you. So, are you a beginner? When you are getting started, you're not going to go right to the keynote. Okay, you could, but probably not likely. Often getting placed on a panel is a great place to start. Or talk to students. Your local high schools or college classes may be looking for guest lecturers. Think about Career Day, for example. Even taking and giving, even asking a question from the audience is a good way to get started. At the intermediate level, you're going to start building your brand. You're going to collect those pictures and videos of yourself speaking. And it's really time to hone your craft and your presentation. Every opportunity is a chance to practice. As you move into the advanced level of speaking, you'll likely want to have a speaker-specific website. At this point, you must, absolutely must have a video. And this is the point where you know the one topic or the one subject that you really want to be known for. As you're creating abstracts and applications to speak, that's, by the way, abstracts for the win, an awesome title for your talk or your session is key. One of the pieces of feedback from conferences is, don't make me guess what you're going to speak on. Make it very clear. So with that title, we want to make sure it matches your idea. Don't make people guess, but you can still get creative. You want to convey some sense of urgency, and you want to be specific on what they're going to learn when you speak. Here are some ideas. We call them title starters. The secrets of, or little-known ways. One way to do a title is to quantify what people are going to learn. It also helps you structure your presentation. Stop doing X and do Y. This is the instructions format for a title. Why you should, or ask a question. And the beginner's guide to, or conversely, the expert's guide to. That actually tells the audience who this presentation is for. As you are creating your abstracts, sometimes it's easiest to start with the problem you're solving. What's the pain? Where's the controversy? And what's the solution to that problem? Tell the conference organizers why you are the person who is uniquely qualified to give this particular talk. Now, let's nail down the speech itself. Let me preface this section by saying the best thing that you can do is get a lot of experience. A lot of speeches equals better speeches on down the line. Your first job is to be likable. I once had a speaker trainer come in and talk to a group I was running about how he could help them all be better speakers. Unfortunately, he came off as so arrogant nobody wanted to work with him. You don't want people leaving just because you come off, well, I have to say it, like a jerk. Dry facts never made anyone's presentation any better. Look for places to drop in your personal stories and your anecdotes. Tell me a story. Get excited about your topic. Passion turns any mediocre presentation into a spellbinding one. You want to be just as excited as you want to see your audience be. And no one really wants to listen to you read. Write up your notes or use bullets and talk to your audience. More pictures, fewer words on slides. I once saw a speaker read her entire speech from the slides that were displayed for the audience. She had literally put her entire speech on PowerPoint and displayed it for everybody. Unfortunately, by the time she was done, there weren't a lot of people left in the room. And last but not least, rehearse. Steve Jobs, for example, was known to rehearse for days before an Apple product launch. But you also don't want to rehearse too much. You don't want to sound staged or stilted or, by definition, over-rehearsed. So how are we doing? For more tips about speaking, you can sign up for our weekly Innovation Women newsletters, and we're also putting together a series of presentations right here on Bright Talk. So, now's the opportunity. Any questions from our audience? Oh yes, we also have a code. If you use webinar, and that's in all capital letters, on the Innovation Women website, you can get 20% off the $100 speaker fee on the Innovation Women website. So that's innovationwomen.com. And let's see here. Do we have any feedback from the audience? Awesome. We've got a couple people that are talking to us about their own speaking engagements. So, yes, there are absolutely all different types of audience opportunities. So one of the things that a lot of people ask is, am I a person who should be speaking? So the answer is absolutely yes. And we get speakers at all different levels. One of the first panels that we put together for Innovation Women was a panel of millennials, and they were all asked to talk about how they got their first job. And I can pretty much guarantee that almost all of them were people that had never been on stage before and never done a lot of public speaking. So there are lots of opportunities at all different levels. Our next question is, what's a good resource to find panels? So, finding panels, this is what we were talking about a little bit earlier with the calls for speakers. So if you use Google Alerts or TalkWalker to do searches for calls for speakers, you can often find the calls for speakers, and then what you want to do is kind of turn those into opportunities for panels. Go and look at previous years. You can search Twitter for calls for speakers as well. That's actually, I see a hashtag. But just go and look at the conferences and events. Convention Nation, I think, it has about 6,000 different conferences and events listed on the website. And you can go and look for conferences and events that are in your area of expertise. So, also, obviously, Women Inno, which is our Twitter handle. We often tweet out calls for speakers, and when we're looking for speakers or we're doing concierge work with an organization, we will be sometimes looking for people publicly that way. So let's see. Our next question, how do you pick your topic, the one that you are known for? So how do you pick your topic? Oh, so complex. So many different things to consider when you're picking your topic. Number one, pick the topic that you're comfortable with, the thing that you feel like, I know more about this than anybody else. You also want to look at what people want to hear. One of the tips that I often give people is, if you're at a cocktail party and someone asks you what you do and you tell them, what's the first question they ask you about your job or your role or your profession? What are the questions that you get asked by other people in your industry? You know, what's the thing that someone will call you up and say, I don't know how to do this thing, but I know you do. What are you known for? So these are all questions that you can answer when it comes down to picking your topics. You also want to think about the topics that people want to know about. Some conferences and events, they have the same topics every year. Other conferences and events will choose things that seem pulled from the headlines of your industry publications. So what's hot, what's controversial, if you can address those topics, you're usually guaranteed a slot on the hot topic conferences. Oh my goodness. More questions. Let's see here. Oh, and how do you get paid opportunities versus not paid? Oh, another complex conversation about paid versus not getting paid. First off, when we started Innovation Women, we did a ton of research on how speakers get paid. And the reality is about half the event managers, they don't have any budget for speakers whatsoever. It's not part of their business model. 42%, they only pay a few speakers. They might only be paying their keynotes, or they might have some travel money for specific speakers who are traveling to their event. Only 8% of the event managers we surveyed had budget for all or most of their speakers. Then you have to actually go and look at who is benefiting from you speaking. If you are speaking to an audience which consists 100% of your customers, chances are you're not going to get paid for that. You're getting compensated another way. You're able to take business out of the room. If you are speaking to people who are not your customers, that might be an opportunity for you to get paid because they want some area of expertise that you have. This is an enormously complex arena, and paid versus not getting paid is an article that we wrote on the Innovation Women blog, and I think we have the ability to share some of the links in this later on. So I will share links to that, but you can also search on Innovation Women for our blogs that address those. Let's see here. Oh my gosh, so many questions. Which one are we looking at here? Creating the list of topics, having a hard time figuring out topics. It's a combination of head cluttered with business launch, extracting what I'm an expert at, but I'm speaking at on the Conference on World Affairs this year. Oh, that's great. It's such an amazing conference. I have had so many great experiences at that conference, and so congrats to our person sending in that little comment. Let's see, our next person. Hey, Steph, nice to hear from you. You're saying, I'm having a hard time finding time to apply and seek out speaking engagements with launching my other services. Do you have any suggestions on what I can do? Should I hire someone to work specifically on this part of my business? At what point do you move into primarily a paid speaker? Okay, bunch of stuff there. Number one, some little helpful hints is having your abstracts very handy, and having them all in one place so that you can just pull your abstracts and drop them into the calls for speakers when you need them. Now, obviously, you can't keep using the same abstract over and over again, but often it needs some tweaks, and often there are questions about things like, what will the audience take away and stuff. So you will find, though, that the majority of speaking engagements and calls for speakers will have some of the same elements, and so you can use those abstracts and just tweak them for the different opportunities. I store all of my abstracts actually in Innovation Women, and I use them as example talks on our platform profiles so that they're always right there. And on Friday mornings when I get my list of speaking engagements through our weekly newsletter, I have Innovation Women profile open, and I can just cut and paste my abstracts into the places where I'm applying. Should you hire someone to work specifically on this part of your business? I think that's a business decision that only you can address, but I will tell you that speakers who speak for a living usually have a partner who is handling the business aspect of it. It's either a partner or an employee, and that person is following up on the leads that are generated when they speak, and they're handling the business aspect of that, and which some of that includes applying, and some of that includes the business relationship. And then the next part of that question is, what point do you move into primarily paid speaker? Different answers for different industries, but if you are able to make a living with your speaking, more power to you. It's a tough row to hoe, and a lot of people are trying it, and I think a lot of people are doing it without truly understanding who pays and who doesn't pay. All right, so how do I compensate for a weak resume? I know what I'm talking about, but I don't have the experience to prove it. You know, it's interesting. One of the event managers that we worked with actually told me that he could place a speaker who is an intern at Google and get more butts in seats than the CEO from an unknown startup. So some of it does come down to the company that you're associated with and how recognizable their name is. So number one, are you looking for opportunities while you're an employee at a specific company? That might help. Also, let's face it, the 1 pound calling card, be an author. You know, write your book, create your concept. You can actually do a lot with a blog or a podcast. Also, another benefit to increasing your community and your public speaking network is if you are active on social media, if you have your own mailing list, you are very attractive to an event manager who is looking to promote their event. So having that big, nice mailing list and that very public social media persona will help you get more gigs, and that's something that you should promote to the event managers as well. All right. Do you have an individual category inside Innovation Women for cybersecurity? I have to go take a look at that. I'm not sure about the answer of that. However, it really doesn't matter because most of the event managers that search Innovation Women are searching based on topic, not by industry or category. So you can put any topic into your profile, and event managers are finding you that way. All right. So, oh, that's right. I just got reminded we just filled up a panel for cybersecurity. So we've done quite a bit in the cybersecurity arena. There have been a number of security opportunities that we've helped fill. All right. So what's the next cat? Oh, all right. So it says there's another question. Oh. All right. So what are we We are running out of time here, and I do want to make sure that we are finishing this up in a timely fashion. If you have any more questions, feel free to address them to me, Bobbie at innovationwomen.com, or you can follow us on Twitter, WomenInno on Twitter, or Bobbie C, that's BOBBIEC, and tweet at me and I can answer your questions that way. So go forth, get speaking, and we want to hear all about these great speaking opportunities that you guys nailed down. Good luck. Thanks again for attending. Bye-bye.